I put in the chat that national voters are fucking morons. The truth is, national voters are fucking morons. So says Simeon Brown. That's actually the full situation. Simeon Brown, if you're a voter for National, Simeon Brown thinks you're a fucking moron. So stupid that you can't figure out where you are in the world based on a Māori word being put on a road sign. On Monday, Waka Kotahi said its He Tohu Huranui Māori bilingual traffic signs program was going out for public consultation. In a transport meeting yesterday with Mbaiapuni, National spokesperson Simeon Brown said introducing the language to road signs would make them more confusing and they, quote, should all be in English. He thinks his voters are too stupid to figure this out. The Māori Party co-leader says National Party should go back to school if it thinks including Te Reo Māori on road signs is confusing. If successful, the program would include Te Reo Māori on motorway and expressway signs, destination signs, public and active transport signs, walking and cycle signs, general advisory and warning signs. Te Pāti Māori co-leader Debbie Ngāwea-Paka said having the language included on road signs will help those in process of learning Te Reo. This is an environment where there's more non-Māori learning reo than we have ever had in the history of Aotearoa. It's important that we embrace our nationhood, including our Indigenous people and our language. We spent a long time trying to make sure we don't lose our language. So having our culture in our roads and not just about helping those who are helping those who are fluent Māori speakers, but also those who are in our education system, learning reo, and can see it reflected around our environment. Now, I'm going to place an item. I think this is actually from today's news, I believe. Is it today's? Yeah, it's from today's news. The story has changed quite quickly, right? Because it's not actually what they're suggesting. But just listen to the language that the National Party is using in this story. Listen to what they're saying and just think about, mid-2000s, Don Brash, Orewa speech. Think Donald Trump, think the kind of language that's used about an Indigenous minority and the way that National Party MPs are speaking about this, about having a sign that says Havelock North, but also has the Māori place name as well. So if you can't speak Māori and you don't know what this is, it still says fucking Havelock North. I think that I find this quite terrifying, the kind of language that these National Party MPs are using. I want you to hear it too.
Aye, this is over the bilingual road signs in Te Reo Māori and English, which Waka Kotahi want to roll out. The idea is out for public consultation and would see old road signs replaced with the new bilingual road signs as and when needed. So it is low cost and it's part of a government effort to increase the amount of Te Reo Māori that's in everyday life.
So let's just make this really clear that if you're listening to the audio podcast, you won't be able to see this, but every single sign here has both English and Māori on it. Right?
And symbols. Symbology is there as well.
Yeah. So like Winston Peters will make a big deal about this, about having Māori on place names and on signs in hospitals and stuff. But if you speak English and that's all you understand, every single sign is still readable by you.
National's transport spokesperson Simeon Brown has taken issue with the road signs, saying, and I quote, "We all speak English, so they should be in English." And today, the Prime Minister took a mighty big swing.
Well, the current leader of the National Party tried to trademark Kia ora. So I'm not entirely sure where they're going with that unless it's just an outright dog whistle.
This is just what Chris Hipkins says whenever anyone says anything about Te Reo in this country. Apparently you're not allowed to have a genuine conversation about how we can take this country forward and talk about Maori from the National Party without literally being accused of dog whistling.
If anybody out there knows of a body language expert, I would just love to get them to look at this clip from Chris Bishop. Because I don't know about you, but the swaying and the shaking of the head, it looks, I don't know. I play poker. There's not such a thing as tells when people play poker about what they do. It's more about the patterns. But there is something looking at how he's acting when he's speaking that feels very disingenuous with what he's actually saying. I could be wrong, but I would be interested to know. Let's have a look again.
This is just what Chris Hipkins says whenever anyone says anything about te reo in this country. Apparently you're not allowed to have a genuine conversation about how we can take this country forward and talk about Maori from the National Party without literally being accused of dog whistling. I mean, I just think it's...
Simeon Brown's road rage at the road signs is not in isolation, and it should be noted that the signs are bilingual, so are in English. But over the recess, national MPs have been out hitting the regions and hitting the public meetings. And at one meeting in Auckland's North Shore last week, national leader Christopher Luxon said he had a problem with the level of te reo Māori used in government departments. And with the election race this close, it's clear that the National Party has decided that race relations and populism are on the table if it gives them a shot.
Ngā mihi, Amelia.
So there you go. In other words, if we can dog whistle, we will dog whistle. Now, Chewy, here's the thing. 6:30 tonight, right, before he came on, Te Reo Māori road signs supported by National, says MP Chris Bishop. PM Chris Hipkins accuses party of dog whistle. 6:30 tonight. This came out, 6:41 to be precise. National has backed down on its opposition to bilingual road signs, with senior MP Chris Bishop now stating the party supports them in principle. To be fair now, I knew this before I said that thing, so I wonder if I just had my own little moment of bias thinking about him not believing what he was saying when he was doing this. I didn't put two and two together, but it does sort of line up now that I've said those two things. Bishop today clarified that National did actually support bilingual signs, but wanted more focus from Waka Kotahi on fixing potholes and upgrading our roads. If they want to have bilingual road signs with te reo and English on them, that's fine. You've got his permission, Waka Kotahi, that's fine. But we just don't think it's a particularly good use of resources right now. That's not true, because that's not what you fucking said, National. You didn't mention resources once. You said, and I'm not going to quote it because I'll get it wrong, we all speak English. They should be in English. That's what you said. Don't walk it back with this bullshit right now. He said, however, it was very important that English was extremely prominent because that's what the vast bulk of New Zealanders understand. So we've got no issue. with bilingualism. Well, you did 20 minutes ago, sir, but we just don't think it should be the priority of the Transport Agency right now. And just to highlight the amount of disdain these National Party MPs have for their voters, very good cartoon out today. And in fact, the best one is actually this one right here. Gentlemen, if you're listening, gentlemen standing outside the sign that says Havelock North, and I guess it's Karanema, saying, where the fuck am I? Because it's got a Māori word on it, so how would he know where he is? Of course he knows. What do those hieroglyphics even mean? Says another person. Can I move this across? I'll go back down again. What's next? They'll rename our babies. I won't let them name him Wiramu. So it is, and I wonder if National backing down so quickly like that is just an absolute example of dog whistling. They've put it out there, and they really have no comeback now. It didn't go well when they ran it through their populism meter, maybe their PR company.
I mean, I love it when they couch things with like, oh, we just think that Waka Kotahi should just concentrate on the potholes. As if they just have one pot of money that is like, well, we can do one thing. We can replace the signs bit by bit, or we can do the potholes, but we can't do both. For some reason, we're utterly incapable of doing two things at once. They've stressed that it's like, we're putting this out for public consultation. You can go and look for it, by the way. You can put your own submission in, and I recommend you do, because these guys definitely are. They're making sure that the public knows what's going on, as they should.
Yeah.
And in some parts of the country, they need to replace a lot of signs. So what a good opportunity to do that right the first time. But I also want to put this in context of some other things that were said today. There's an excellent, I think the Spinoff has an article about what they're calling National's bowling club meetings, where they're having community meetings, come and meet the candidates, that sort of thing, in the middle of the day at bowling clubs. And they're just pandering to an older audience that find all this Maori to be really confronting.
Right.
And I feel like if they are going to be listening to this group, so it's just going to be a massive leap forward. Like Te Reo has come leaps and bounds. Like you couldn't have anywhere near what we've got now, even 10, 15 years ago. Like people are starting to realize that this is a key part of modern New Zealand culture. You know, we are not just an English-speaking country.
What happened the other day when we were in Ponsonby that your mate was talking about? Because I said there's 3 official languages in New Zealand. English,
no, there's
Māori.
only 2.
Yeah, that's what I said. It's English, Māori, and New Zealand Sign Language. And what did he say?
That there are only 2. There's Sign and Te Reo.
Because
English is assumed, but
English
it's
has
not
never been written
enshrined in
into
law.
So it's never been written into law. So actually, technically, New Zealand has 2 official languages, Māori and New Zealand Sign Language.
But when it comes to road signs, right, a really important part of road signs is making sure it does not matter what language you speak. Can you understand this sign? I've been lucky enough to travel. And if you've ever been in a position of being in a railway station in the middle of Europe where the signs are in Dutch, German, English, French, a whole bunch of things all at once, and you can process a lot of information if you're not screaming at talkback radio about how they've changed the name of Havelock North, or like I'm going to try and stop calling Auckland for a start, because do you know who Auckland's named after?
Lord Auckland?
Yeah, a British governor of India who never came here. So why the fuck would we be giving him the honour of that when we can just give it its much better Māori name, Tamaki Makaurau? Yeah.
I just thought for the first time, when Ed Sheeran came to Dunedin, they changed the name of Dunedin. There it is there. I'll bring it up. To Dunedin. I wonder if anyone got upset about that.
Of course not.
This was a fantastic. Give DCC credit where credit's due. This was a brilliant marketing campaign. Ed Sheeran came here and played 3 gigs, 100,000 people through, and the sign out to the airport was lit up, and it had that blue Ed in it. And so for the weekend he was here, it was they changed it to Dunedin, and it was brilliant. Of course, it got massive exposure all around the world. What's that one? Yeah, Dunedin. I wonder if people had a concern about that because the name of the city had been played with and it had changed slightly, and
just and like the assumption of this is getting back to your original point, right? The assumption from these guys that their supporters have the moral flexibility, the mental plasticity of your average granite countertop is that you get to a certain age and you just can't process more information. And you're just like, what? Like, I remember having a conversation with my mother probably 5 years ago where she was having to go through some cultural sensitivity modules at work and stuff like that. And she was really put out, right? Because they were basically saying, hey, look, you've been mispronouncing this, that, and the other thing. And she was taking it as a personal attack. Like, I've been saying this wrong my whole life. How dare they? It's not that. It's not a personal accusation. It's a reflection of who lives here, and it's a reflection of the history of this place. You've got 2 names on that image there.
Yeah.
Because of the treaty. And sometimes, just sometimes, maybe the original Māori name for a place is a better name than the one that the colonial English decided.
I don't even think it's because of the treaty on some level, Chewy. Like, I was thinking about this just today. It wasn't to do with this because I've had a few MPs come back saying they'll come and talk to us on a Friday night. And I was just sitting, and look, I probably shouldn't say this publicly because it's not a trap or anything. But, should the right person get a hold of it, it'll be a prepped question. I want to say to some of these MPs, like to a David Seymour or a Chris Luxon, Chris Luxon especially, if you're a marketing guru, how would you market New Zealand to show the uniqueness of New Zealand? Like, what would you do in a marketing campaign to show that New Zealand is different from every other country? Like, what is it about New Zealand that makes us unique and special? And, you know, he might go beaches and lakes and clean. And I'll go, yeah, but Switzerland. So there's lots of countries that can do that. What is it that is unique to New Zealand that you won't find anywhere else in the world like it is in New Zealand? Because I'm sure you all know there's really only one answer.
Yeah,
and that's
absolutely.
That's the Māori culture. So when I say it's not necessarily about the treaty, I look at that and I think, much like you go through Quebec and they have signs in French and English, you go through New Zealand and they have signs in Māori and English. And so I'm not saying it's not about the treaty full stop, but I'm like, actually, this is Māori culture, Māori language is the one unique thing in New Zealand. Like, I've said this as a talkback host since the early aughts, and I've never, ever, 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 ever had someone tell me something else that is unique to New Zealand and New Zealand alone other than the Māori language. Now, if you've got something, tell me. But if you're talking about, you know, Christmas in the summertime, yeah, Australia, South Africa, rugby, same, England as well. You know, beaches and mountains and snow, well, every country in the world. You know what I mean? It's like, It's like this is a part, and this is why I've always said, even if you don't identify with the Māori culture at all, if you are part of New Zealand's story, you personally, then the Māori story is a part of your story. So
100%,
even if you don't want to acknowledge it, even if you want to push back from it, if you want to be a New Zealander, you kind of can't. And the sooner we all get to terms with that, the better we will be. Someone says flightless burns. I'll raise your flightless burns, David, and I'll say ostrich. Penguins. There you go.
No, as someone that has travelled overseas a bit, it all comes back to that for me. I've travelled in countries where they're multilingual. The signs are multilingual. Finland has signs in Finnish and Sweden and sometimes Russian. And people in that country will shift between those languages depending on where in the country they are. Finland has a lot of mirrors with us, actually, because they were a country that was colonized. They were part of Sweden. They have an indigenous group of people, the Sami people. And the Finnish government is putting an enormous amount of effort into retaining that language because it is unique to them. You know, you can look at Wales, you can look at Ireland, and the efforts that are going into retaining their language. I think Wales has an enormous amount mirrored with us.
Yeah, resurgence of
reclaiming their place names.
Yep.
And you'll see those on signs. And you know what? People don't immediately lose their mind and crash their cars into a field. It just doesn't happen. We're better than this.
Yeah.
We're better. How do New Zealanders go when they go to Bali? You know, and it's like, oh, fuck, I don't recognize some of those letters. Insane. Do you want to have a crack at saying that, Pat?
No.
'Cause that's scary.
No. I know it finishes with gogokoch because I've heard it pronounced before. And let me say this: there are people who are actually having a crack at this. Look, birds and wetters and kiwis and stuff are unique to this country. I agree, but that's not what's going to be on a marketing campaign. Might be a part of it, but that's not going to be what's on a marketing campaign.
You look at any New Zealand company or anybody exporting a New Zealand product or brand throughout the world, and you'll get your answer.
Yeah,
it is Māori culture. You go overseas and you talk to people and you say, what do you know about New Zealand? They'll tell you the haka. They'll call it a Maori war dance, which is annoying, but that's what they know. That's what we're known for. And I see these stories about these meetings that you know, the people that are meeting with national candidates about becoming the next government, and they're bringing up these culture war type issues. I immigrated from England 20 years ago, and I don't like that the Maori are getting everything. Well, Beryl from Suffolk, maybe you don't know enough about the country that you live in. You know,
Just to reiterate that point that Christopher Hipkins made, Air New Zealand drops Kia ora trademark bid. How the fuck, Christopher Luxon, do you think that you could trademark the word Kia ora?
Because he has zero understanding of what he's talking about. I mean, this is a man that says that he's learning te reo, and do you see anything? He doesn't do it. You don't see it.
I have to be fair, and I've made this criticism lots. Every time an interviewer goes, Kia ora, Mr. Luxon, he goes, "G'day." I've maybe seen him do it once or twice ever, but still only once or twice ever back. So here's the story that Hipkins was referencing. Air New Zealand has withdrawn its bid to trademark the logo for its in-flight magazine Kia Ora following talks with Māori leaders. The airline came under fire from Māori intellectual property rights experts earlier this month for filing the application. Chief Executive Christopher Luxon, he's that guy that's in politics now, said after speaking with iwi leaders, the airline would no longer actively pursue the trademark and will urge the government to review the rules for trademarking words from the Māori language. Now, here's the last thing, before we move on. If I'm incorrect, and there is a lot more that is trademarkable or that you'd use in kind of marketing than that, like that's unique to New Zealand, then why the fuck did Christopher Luxon try and trademark a Māori word? Why didn't he try and trademark the word hello and make that their magazine? Why was it Kia Ora? I think that's obvious reasons. Hello!